This video has been brought to you by Tees for Tims. Remember, if you're looking for some really good quality Celtic merch at this delicate time where you might not want to put money into the club, then choose the independent retailers like Tees for Tims. There is some fantastic designs available all across the website, like this one I am wearing now, amongst many others. If you're looking for gifts this Christmas time, anything at all, check out Tees for Tims and you will find so many there. Use code Ryan118 for a 10% discount at checkout. It is the 29th of October 2025 and tonight in the dugout managing Celtic Football Club will be Martin O'Neill. It still feels utterly ridiculous that I am saying that aloud. Not for any reason that disrespects or discredits the great man and great manager that is Martin O'Neill. But if you told me this, 72 hours ago, I would have laughed in your face. But it's the reality we're living in. And as we search for our next permanent manager at Celtic Football Club, Martin O'Neill has the very tough task of bringing back some stability until that decision is made. And today we're having a lot of updates and getting a lot of hour by hour pieces of information on who could be the next Celtic manager. So let's talk about that. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated. Thank you all for the support so far this week. One of the craziest weeks I will ever have on this channel, without a shadow of a doubt. In fact, if I plan on doing this for the next however many years of my life, until the day I retire, I really don't know if I will see a crazier week than this. So I'll be here all the way through it. Today we're going to talk about the updates and what's in the news regarding who will be next Celtic manager. And I'm assuming by the time I publish this video, we will probably have further updates and further information as to who that might be. So apologies if anything does seem outdated by the time you see this. Keep in mind it's currently 3 o'clock on the 29th of October. So we're going to talk about what we have right now. Who will be the next Celtic manager? We'll just have to wait and see. Can I just quickly mention before we start with the video, remember there is a planned protest outside Celtic Park at 7 PM tonight. If you can make it, if you're going to the game and you have time to spare, I urge you to take part. I'll be there this evening outside Celtic Park to make my thoughts perfectly clear and stand with other Celtic fans who feel the same way. It will be outside the main stand, and of course it is just to try and make it clear that we think change is needed at this football club after everything that's happened so far this season. It's clear something has to change, and I would encourage everybody to go. Of course, it's your own decision, and of course, you don't need to abide by this. Nobody's forcing you to go before you start making out that I'm here trying to force you to go. No, I'm just reminding folk that it's on, and try to make it if you can, and if you want to be there. There's really no structured way for me to do this. There is a lot of information being put out there right now. Lots of different journalists writing lots of different stories and different angles of stories, suggesting that Celtic have identified someone as a top target, but also have lists of other names and candidates. Ultimately, I think the bottom line is this: Celtic will go through a proper interviewing process, which will take time. They might have already contacted certain individuals to try and organise an interview, but they will have their favourites while also wanting to interview others. I don't think there's any decision made yet. So despite seeing articles that might say such and such is the top target or this guy's the favourite, I don't think anything is concrete or set in stone yet, and won't be for at least another week. I think that interview process is very, very important to try and identify who the right guy is. On that note, I don't trust this current board and this current regime at Celtic to make the right decision. I really don't. I'm hoping, and I've made it clear I have a preferred candidate, I'm hoping that they go forward with someone who we can all get behind and all be relatively happy with, but I still don't trust them to do their due diligence the way that any other football club would, just because the decision making at this football club at a high level, at a business level, has been so poor. So really our fate is in the hands of the gods right now, and we can only wait and see what happens. But I think that all these articles that I'm going to go through today in a very kind of live stream type fashion is what we have to work with right now, and keep that in mind. It's not me writing these stories, it's not me who is suggesting that we have someone that's a preferred candidate. We're just using the information that is at hand for me. On that note, tomorrow I'm going to make a video of my top 5 candidates and go through the positives and the negatives of each of those potential appointments, even the negatives for ones that I really, really want. I'm going to be honest, there's only a couple of names that I'm really interested in and a couple of names that I really want, and I'll probably allude to that in today's video, but look out for that. I've got a wedding tomorrow, so I'm not actually going to be here. That will be pre-recorded and posted tomorrow morning. But until then, let's have a look at the news. That's what you're all here for. What's the latest? Big week at Celtic. So we're getting lots of articles like this, and according to Keith Jackson of the Daily Record, who is someone that lots of people have problems with and lots of people doubt, according to him at the Daily Record, Craig Bellamy is emerging as a leading candidate for the job. That was an article that was published literally in the past couple of hours as I record this, around 1:30 this afternoon. The headline was wrote that Craig Bellamy is a leading Celtic manager target, but Celtic will face one major hurdle if they want to land him. In that article, Keith Jackson goes on to clarify something that has been said a number of times, and that's that Paul Tisdale is someone who is in charge of drawing up the list of candidates and will have maybe the biggest say in appointing the next Celtic manager. That's something that has been spoken about a few times these past few days, that Paul Tisdale will have a big say. And this is what comes back to I come back to the point I made a moment ago. I don't trust these people at the club to make the decision, and I know there's nobody else there that will make the decision. It's hardly going to be the fans that make the decision, but there's nothing really to suggest that Paul Tisdale's time at Celtic has been a success right now, and the work that he's to do as head of football and operations, or whatever his title is, produces any sort of evidence that he should be trusted with that significant task. However, apparently the Record understands that the head of football operations, Paul Tisdale, the football doctor, Dr. Shipman, is drawing up a short list of potential candidates, and Bellamy has emerged already as a person of considerable interest. That follows Kieran McKenna being made as an early frontrunner by the bookies, and we'll come on to his situation in a moment. But this article that was wrote in the past couple of hours has really brought Craig Bellamy forward as a strong contender. I'm not on the camp of bringing in Craig Bellamy, to be quite honest. I think there's certainly worse options, and he's kind of in that middle of the pack for me situation where, like, I'd be kind of underwhelmed and disappointed, but I wouldn't be, like, actively angered. I think it just sums Celtic up to go for somebody who has history with the club, who had played for us as a player, and he doesn't necessarily have the club experience that would back up his appointment anyway. I understand he's doing a decent job at Wales, his brand of football is attractive, but I don't see why he should be prioritised over other options in front of us right now, if I'm being perfectly honest. So that is one of the things that's been wrote. That came out this afternoon. Apparently, the hurdles is obviously walking away from Wales, who have a chance of, World Cup qualification. So this is it's been made perfectly clear that Bellamy would have to be convinced to leave when they're chasing down a place in the World Cup with 2 games to go. They're favourites to win their group, and that's obviously something that would be probably quite difficult to try and get you away from. So effectively, that's the big hurdle. The compensation fee would be significantly less, they're reporting, than what it would be for Kieran McKenna. But right now, it looks as though Craig Bellamy is emerging as an early sort of favourite in the eyes of Paul Tisdale anyway, who, can I just clarify, won't have the 100% say. I think we all know that Mr. Desmond, who seems to be the dictator at Celtic Football Club, will probably have a big say in the matter as well, but at least his word will probably go a long way in terms of suggesting his ideal candidate. So on that note, let's talk about Kieran McKenna, who I've made it no secret is my preferred candidate for the job. This is who ideally I would like to see as next Celtic manager. It emerged very early on Tuesday following the departure of Brendan Rodgers that McKenna was a favourite for the job. However, there is a massive stumbling block, and that comes in the way of his compensation fee. This is pretty widespread knowledge by now. I'm not breaking any exclusive here, but it is something that has to be discussed. They're looking at a compensation fee of over £5 million for Kieran McKenna. That's what they would have to pay out Ipswich. He's on a good contract just now. Of course, the success he's delivered at Ipswich is of a huge scale. He's very highly valued down there, and they rewarded him with a big contract despite their relegation back to the Championship at the end of last season. He has emerged as the early front runner, as noted here, but there is a huge compensation fee. It won't be cheap, and we haven't made an approach. Put it that way. There's been no approach made, but I'm assuming that is a conversation and a phone call that will at least happen. It might not lead to an interview, it might not lead to anything beyond that initial phone call, but you can only assume that Kieran McKenna will be looked at as a top target. Realistically, for me, it's as simple as this. That 5 million should not be a problem for Celtic. And I actually think to myself, I said this last night, and I'll use it now. There's actually a part of me that believes that Dermot Desmond might act with a lot of spite in the next few months. I'm not saying this is a guarantee, this is purely just a hypothetical scenario and a bit of a theory, you could say. But with everything that's happened with Rodgers, with the constant abuse that Desmond is getting at the minute, there is part of me that thinks that a bit of spite will be used in terms of showing Brendan Rodgers how he'll back the next manager, and also showing us what he's willing to do to get a top manager. I could see Celtic paying out that 5 million if Desmond is up for it, but then again, asking Celtic to spend money is a big point in itself. So, yeah, Kieran McKenna is still a very realistic possibility. It seems, it feels like there's a lot of Ipswich fans actually worried that this will happen. And right now, he does remain the bookies' favourite. We'll come on to the odds in a moment. It will be persuasive. I think that if you want to take him away from that project that he's been under, it will take a lot of persuasion. But realistically, I think he's done all he can with the Ipswich project. I think that even if they were to get promoted back to the Premier League, the situation is pretty straightforward. It's going to be another kind of relegation battle with the funding and with the disadvantage you face when getting promoted from the Premier League. You know, obviously, you would aspire to go on and do what Sunderland are currently doing, but that's not easy. That's very, very difficult. And yeah, I think this is something that he might strongly consider if we're serious about it. Whether we are or not is a completely different story. We understand that big fee is in the way, but he still remains one of Celtic's top targets by all accounts. So it does feel like at this point, and this was an article from Sky Sports yesterday, and Sky, who have issued a further update that we'll come to, it seems like there is 3 front runners, and they are the 3 guys on screen now. Ange Postecoglou, Craig Bellamy and Kieran McKenna. I think as it currently stands, these are the 3 that I would be expecting to hear more about in the coming days and weeks. If it's not one of these 3, I would be really stunned. There is other guys that I would like, but I think it is going to be one of these 3. 2 of them I'd be significantly happier with than the other. And for me, it does feel like at this point, out of the 3, it has to be Ange or McKenna. So those are the 3 names that have been doing the rounds the most. Whether any of them realistically want a move to Celtic right now, completely different story in itself, but those seem like the names. Those are the ones doing the rounds at this moment in time. However, if you aren't interested in any of those names, there are other names being mentioned, of course there is, and even though I'm saying it's looking like it might be one of those 3, never count out the possibility of an outsider coming in at the last minute and becoming the favourite. Kjetil Knutsen, Nicky Hyen, 2 names doing the rounds as well. Knutsen I've been very vocal about and how I think he's just beyond Celtic at this stage, but Nicky Hyen is certainly a very interesting one that I really, really like, that I just didn't expect to be linked with at all. I don't see anything coming from it, to be quite honest, but apparently they have been tracking, Celtic have been tracking both of these guys for a while, but luring them both away mid-season, challenging. Damien Duff, Robbie Keane, of course, names that are doing the rounds as well. I'm not going to spend too much time deep diving in that just now, but these are the kind of things that are coming up at the minute. Hyen is certainly one that intrigues me, and I really like the sound of it. I really do, especially after watching what Brugge done to Rangers. You know, this is certainly something that comes, you know, as a pleasant surprise. They're outsiders at this moment in time. I think it would take a lot for Celtic to get them, and probably a lot that's just a bit too much. So this is where it leaves us as things stand at 3:20 on a Wednesday afternoon. Kieran McKenna still remains the favourite, the top 3 by the Bet365 odds anyway, are McKenna, Postecoglou and Keane. Kevin Muscat is in there at 7-1. He's dropped from 10-1 to 7-1 in the last half an hour. I don't know if they're hearing anything or people are just being ambitious and lumping their money on him. It's not going to be Kevin Muscat, let's be fucking real for a moment. But this is how it's looking right now. Nicky Hyen is there at 16-1, for example, and a few other names, of course, but it is still that top 3 that has remained unchanged, and Kieran McKenna still remains the favourite according to the bookies. This will change by tonight, by the way. This will change drastically by tonight, and I'm sure that we'll probably have some form of article in the next couple of days about how one of these guys in this list, it could be any of them, is just an absolute no-go and it won't be happening. But until then, this is the information we have to work with. I want it to be McKenna. I really, really do. So this is another piece of news we have to discuss, and it's time for a rant, ladies and gentlemen. This was hidden away on the club's website this morning and wasn't posted on any of the social media channels, which is, the way that it works nowadays. Apparently, Celtic have finally confirmed that John Kennedy, Adam Sadler and Jack Lyons have departed the club, and that Glenn Driscoll as well has left the head of performance. This is the line that we got here for them. We thank each of them for their contribution to Celtic and we wish them all the well for the future. John Kennedy, by the way, of 27 years. 27 years of dedication, of commitment and of sacrifice to Celtic Football Club. And this is what he gets. We thank him for his contribution to Celtic and we wish him well. He's been a player, a youth coach, first team coach, assistant manager. Christ, he even stepped in as temporary manager at one of the lowest points of Celtic's modern history. And that's his line that he gets. Not a list of his achievements, not a lengthy farewell and thank you, not a social media graphic, nothing. Just cheers, mate. 27 years. That is absolutely embarrassing. I've already posted a tweet about it this afternoon, and I think that most people, I think the majority of people share the same opinion as me on this. But there are people it's like, so what? What did you want them to do? If you have that opinion, have a look at yourself. If I was at a company for 27 years, I would expect more than that. Let alone a fucking football club that I've devoted my life to. You know, if you think that's acceptable, give your head a fucking wobble. That is shocking. Absolutely shocking. Fair enough, Adam Sadler, Jack Lyons, Glenn Driscoll, we hardly knew you. But John Kennedy, who stayed here through multiple job offers and stayed here through thick and thin, yeah, it might have been time for him to move on. Yeah, it might have been time for freshness. But for that to be what he gets, shocking. Absolutely shocking. I think it all but confirms that, of course, number one, he left alongside Rodgers and declared his loyalty to Brendan, which I think is perfectly acceptable. And also, I think confirms that maybe he didn't leave on the best terms with the ownership group and the ownership group and the higher ups either. But for the embarrassment of a statement to be released on Monday night about Brendan Rodgers, and then for this to be what John Kennedy gets as a thank you, says everything to me about them. Says absolutely everything. I'm embarrassed. I'm let down and I'm disappointed. I'm actually quite angry about it, to be honest with you. I can take criticisms about John Kennedy and maybe being at the club a little bit too long and how it was maybe time for change. I can hear that and I can accept that. That's perfectly okay. But if you think that's okay for his farewell message, not on. Absolutely not on for me. And I'm quite frankly embarrassed. So, I mean, John, I've made it clear. Best of luck. Sorry, this is the treatment you have to have. Absolute legend, and I'm very appreciative for everything you've done at this club. Very much appreciative. And I hope that you land on your feet, whatever it might be. If it's continuing to work with Brendan, if it's continuing to just coach in the background, or if it's whether you go and make yourself a manager and challenge yourself at a football club. I hope it all goes well, and I hope that one day you come back to Celtic in some capacity with different people running the club, and maybe with a well-deserved reception for what you've given this club. I just think this is embarrassing. I think it's absolutely embarrassing. And it also confirms that, you know, the coaching staff moving forward under Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney is Stephen McManus, Mark Fotheringham, Stevie Woods, Gavin Strachan and Greg Wallace. It's a big change for MasterChef for Greg, but he's there anyway. And that's it for now. Now, listen, I would normally do a match preview and a starting 11 prediction for tonight's game. I don't think there's much of a point. We have no idea what Martin O'Neill is going to do, or Sean Maloney, I should say, is going to do tonight in terms of who he fancies and who he wants to play, in terms of what shape we're going to go for. I'm assuming it will still be a 4-3-3. Maloney's in charge, right? Let's be real here. Maloney's in charge. Tactically, he's making the decisions. I think we'll stay with the same shape. I think that O'Neill will have a big say in what personnel he'd rather in the team, and I think we will see quite a few changes from what we saw at Tynecastle on Sunday, but there's not even a point in trying to predict it, so I'm just going to leave the starting 11 and match preview out for now. Yeah, that's me done today until there's a big story or a big update. Take care of yourself, God bless, and I'll see you all next time.